The Ukrainian armed forces control almost 90% of Kupiansk. This was stated by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Alexander Syrskyi. After the meeting of the Ukraine Defense Contact Group in Ramstein, the Commander-in-Chief wrote this on his Telegram channel.
He cited specific examples of successful actions by Ukraine's defense forces. Thanks to active search and strike operations, we managed to push the occupiers away from the city and take control of almost 90% of its territory.
The Commander-in-Chief noted that the enemy has been trying to capture Pokrovsk for more than 17 months. However, Ukrainian units are holding the line and seizing the initiative. According to Syrskyi, in order to launch a strategic offensive operation, the enemy has increased its grouping to about 710,000 troops. But Russia continues to stubbornly lie, claiming it has controlled Kupiansk since November 20th. Allegedly, 15 Ukrainian armed forces battalions are blocked to the south of the city. On December 17th, Russian Defense Minister Belousov once again reported to Putin about the capture of the city.
The Zapad troop grouping has taken control of the strategically important city of Kupiansk, which the enemy is unsuccessfully trying to reclaim. Supply routes for Ukrainian armed forces units pass through it. This will allow for the expansion of the security zone in the Kharkiv region.
On December 2nd, Putin even announced that in just a few days, the Russian army would supposedly take control of Kupiansk-Uzlovoy, and even invited foreign journalists to visit Kupiansk.
Zones of enemy encirclement, representatives of the media, foreign journalists, and Ukrainian journalists.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky showed the whole world that Putin is lying. He recorded a video near the city entrance Stele in Kupiansk, Kharkiv region, the capture of which had recently been reported to the Russian dictator.
Today, it is extremely important to achieve results on the front so that Ukraine can achieve results in diplomacy. That's exactly how it works.
In Russia, the appearance of the Ukrainian president in Kupiansk caused extreme outrage. Z channels reminded that Gerasimov and the commander of the Western troop grouping had reported the so-called complete liberation of the city and the encirclement of as many as 15 Ukrainian armed forces battalions. At the same time, Z channels acknowledged the successful advance of the Ukrainian armed forces in Kupiansk and reported major problems for the Russian military. Their logistics had been cut off. Later, the president of Ukraine commented on his trip to the front.
I was there recently and showed who controls this city. There is a lot of disinformation coming from the Russians. That's why I signaled to our colleagues in the US that they shouldn't believe everything Russia says.
Let us recall that on December 15th, the spokesperson for the Joint Forces of Ukraine, Colonel Viktor Trehubov, reported that Ukrainian troops continue operations to clear the territory of Kupiansk. There are about 100 to 200 Russian servicemen in the city. Trehubov also hinted that the logistical situation for Russian troops in Kupiansk is difficult. On December 12th, the command of the National Guard Corps, Kartia, reported that defense forces had broken through to the Oskil River and completely cut off supply routes for the Russian group in Kupiansk. Analysts from the Institute for the Study of War believe that the Kremlin is using statements about advances in Kupiansk and its surroundings as part of a cognitive war. These actions by Moscow are aimed at portraying Ukrainian positions as supposedly on the verge of collapse, so that Ukraine and the West will give in to Russia's demands.
Kupiansk was liberated, the Russians assured. Social media echoed this twice. The last time the Russian army allegedly took the city was in November. It was then that Gerasimov reported to Putin about his complete control, Kupiansk.
Units of the West Group liberated the city of Kupiansk.
The Russian dictator believed again and again. He boasted about the victory and also talked about a cauldron in which Ukrainian troops had supposedly been trapped.
On the left bank of the river, a formidable enemy group, numbering approximately 15 battalions, has been effectively blocked, and Russian forces have now decisively begun its complete elimination.
At every opportunity, the Russian dictator never failed to mention Kupiansk until December 13th. After that, heads began to roll in the Kremlin command, and the Russians lost their most important leverage in the negotiations. What happened, and how did Putin's victory turn into a crushing defeat? Arsenal is ready to tell and show you all about it. Make yourself comfortable, it's going to be very interesting. On November 20th, Gerasimov and his whole gang report to Putin about the capture of Kupiansk.
The city of Kupiansk was liberated, and it continues to destroy the formations of the armed forces of Ukraine surrounded on the left bank of the Oskil River.
Colonel General Kuzovlev echoes Gerasimov. Putin even asked him again if they had really captured him. General Samaskala. He assures me that's true.
In the Kupiansk direction, assault units of the 68th Motorized Rifle Division of the 6th Army have completed the liberation of the city of Kupiansk.
So that's it. It's completely finished.
That's correct. The city is under our control. Isolated, small, scattered enemy groups are being eliminated.
Remember this face and last name. We'll come back to him a bit later. November 20th, while the Russian military leadership is assuring Putin of victory, the so-called Z military correspondents are refuting this, claiming that the chief of the general staff presented Putin with a false report about the capture of Kupiansk. Pro-Kremlin journalists consider what is happening to be jumping the gun, getting ahead of themselves, thank you. But the Russian dictator himself believed the reports and began spreading the news of victory to the masses. At every opportunity, he spoke about the capture of Kupiansk and even outdid his subordinate Gerasimov in lying. He claimed that the city had been under the occupiers' control since the beginning of November.
By November 4th, Kupiansk was already almost completely in Russian hands. By then, the fate of the city had already been sealed.
On December 9th, Putin even awarded the title of Hero of Russia to that very Colonel General Kuzovlev for the liberation of Kupiansk. Ukraine denied all claims about the capture of the city. It was word against word, but that doesn't matter. What matters is evidence, and it was provided personally by the president of Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky went to Kupiansk and personally recorded an address in front of the stele.
Many Russians were talking about Kupiansk. We see it. I congratulated the guys. Thank you to every unit, to everyone fighting here, to everyone destroying the occupier. Today, it is extremely important to achieve results on the front so that Ukraine can achieve results in diplomacy. That's exactly how it works. All our strong positions are within the country. Strong positions in the conversation after the war ends.
Volodymyr Zelensky recorded this message just 1.5 kilometers from the enemy's position and 500 meters away from the gray zone. It was a huge risk and no one tried to hide it.
I'll be honest, I enter Kupiansk by a different road. And for a while I walk on foot because the activity of enemy artillery and drones is quite high. The president showed courage and demonstrated to the civilized world that supports us, as well as to the president of the United States, the achievements of the Ukrainian army. He disproved the lies into which Putin pours millions of dollars.
But the risk was worth it. The world learned the truth. The truth was revealed. The Russians started to crumble and the Ukrainian armed forces launched a counterattack. After that, everything happened at lightning speed, although the operation itself lasted about 6 months. That was exactly how much time was needed to block the Russians, prevent them from infiltrating the city, and clear out their cells in Kupiansk.
That part of Kupiansk, which the enemy had spent months, just think months, turning into a concrete stronghold, was liberated in the flesh. Right now, the center is being cleared, where the remnants of the Russian occupiers are holed up. And there was a tactical breakthrough, meaning a number of nearby villages were also liberated. These are not just points on a map, these are commanding heights. Now our artillery will be able to strike from there. All this filth that came here.
The city is not yet fully under Ukrainian control, but it's only a matter of time. As a result of the operation, the entire northwestern outskirts of Kupiansk have been cleared, and the remaining Russians in the city have been surrounded. The armed forces of Ukraine made a breakthrough at the Oskil River, cutting off the enemy's logistics. The occupiers are also unable to send reinforcements. Paul Kaheles destroyed the infiltration route of Russian troops near Kupiansk. This refers to a pipe through which Russian soldiers were secretly transferring personnel to the northern outskirts of the city. After such an incredible counterattack, even Z-Patriots had to admit the successful advance of the Ukrainian defenders.
How can I put this gently? Things are really bad there. Kondrashovka, Radkovka apparently are behind enemy lines. All logistics to Kupiansk are cut off. This allowed the Ukrainians to enter the northern part of the city. The guys are trying to counterattack. We're waiting for the results. But Kuzovlev gave a great report about having full control over Kupiansk, about 15 encircled battalions, and received the Hero of Russia award.
Speaking of the commander of the Western Troop Group, Kuzovlev, where has the General Hero of Russia gone? No one knows. They say we should expect him to be replaced soon. And maybe not just that, because Kuzovlev, like Gerasimov, seriously set up Putin. And there's no way to wash that off now.
So it turns out that Putin and his chief of the general staff were putting on a show for the whole world. This whole performance where one was lying and the other pretended to believe him. Or maybe Putin is just that dumb, just that pathetic, that people lie to his face, and how could he even check? He doesn't even have internet, he doesn't use it.
The failure at Kupiansk is actually even more significant for Russians than it seems. All of this will have an impact on peace negotiations. After the lies about capturing the city, the West and the US simply have to start questioning other so-called Russian victories as well. At the front,
They found themselves in a difficult situation. First and foremost, it's a difficult situation not even from a military standpoint, but from a political point of view. Because the direct leader of the Russian Federation made a statement, and the president of Ukraine directly refuted that statement. And not just with words, but visually and physically as well. And now the Russians have to show the world that they can be trusted at all. After all, if they are bluffing to such an extent in presenting the situation, if they claim to have taken a city when that hasn't happened, and in fact the exact opposite has occurred, with the forces surrounded in the city being anything but Ukrainian, then the question is, how can the world trust them at all?
Russia is now desperately trying to fix the situation in its usual manner, sending more and more cannon fodder to their deaths.
Officers returning from assignments to the General Staff report that chaos reigns in the offices of Russia's main military command body. The generals are openly discussing the harsh dressing down they received from the very top. Trying to make the battlefield situation fit their reports and politicians' statements, the General Staff Command, under heavy pressure, is sending massive waves of their soldiers into attacks, ignoring the highest losses in recent times.
This is confirmed even by the occupiers themselves, those who have managed to survive. So far at least.
You wouldn't believe what's going on here. We were just being killed for nothing. They just threw us into the meat grinder. Our entire company, the one we arrived with, the one you saw, has been completely wiped out. There are very few wounded left. Almost everyone else is dead. I only made it out by sheer luck. Managed to get the hell out of there for now. We were commanded by our own guys like Kushin, Spartan, and the like. They're just animals, damn it, pushing everyone forward. There are mines everywhere, the whole field is mined, damn it. Everyone runs, gets blown up, gets looted, and they finish off the ones who are already dead.
Putin doesn't mention Kupiansk anymore. But there is one more important statement that was made when the Russian dictator still believed the city would be taken. And it is a significant one.
The significant events that have recently happened in Kupiansk will, without a doubt, inevitably repeat themselves. And this will occur on other crucial key sections of the front. Perhaps not as quickly as we would ideally like, but with absolute certainty and inevitability, it will indeed happen again.
Inevitable. Putin should remember that. What do you think about the Ukrainian Armed Forces operation and the courage of Volodymyr Zelensky? Share your opinion in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our Arsenal channel so you don't miss any of the most interesting updates.
Federation was destroyed and prisoners were captured. The military reported a success on the front line. On one of the key fronts, the occupiers are suffering massive losses as a result of assault operations by Ukraine's defense forces.
And now, more details in our report. You are watching the Glavored channel. I'm your host, Yevhen Serov. Please like and subscribe to the channel.
The 3rd Corps, together with the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, is conducting assault operations in the Lyman direction. As a result of coordinated actions, they have already managed to straighten the front line and improve the tactical position of Ukrainian forces in this area. According to the 3rd Army Corps, during their cooperation with the intelligence officers, the military managed to eliminate a regiment of the aggressor country Russia's army, as well as capture a significant number of occupiers. The military also notes that their actions primarily deprive the enemy of the ability to maneuver and create the conditions for further decisions in a specific direction. Together with the main intelligence directorate, we achieved an operational tactical result in the Lyman direction. This continues the tradition dating back to the liberation of Moshchun and the breakthrough of helicopters into Mariupol of always offering each other a brotherly shoulder. I am grateful for the exemplary cooperation, stated the commander of the 3rd Army Corps, General Andriy Biletsky. Glavored reported that, according to the military, the occupying army increased its activity in the vicinity of the city of Lyman in the first half of December. Ukrainian soldiers repelled dozens of enemy assaults there every day. Despite such pressure, the enemy has not achieved its goal. In the past month, the enemy has made more than a dozen attempts to infiltrate with small groups in the vicinity of the city. All have been eliminated or taken prisoner, states Deputy Commander of the 3rd Army Corps, Dmytro Kukarchuk. The day before, it became known that the occupiers in the Kharkiv direction continue their attempts to disrupt Ukrainian logistics, as well as amass forces in the rear of the Defense Forces units. Indeed, the situation in this direction looks much better than what the enemy reports to its leadership. The Russians were in Kupiansk and in our relative rear areas. There they were gathering and dispersing their forces. However, we have already managed to disrupt the occupiers' logistics. Then, by containing the enemy within the built-up area, we will gradually destroy them. There are still several enemy groups remaining in Kupiansk, but they do not pose a significant threat. At the same time, in other directions in the Kharkiv region, the occupiers are constantly launching offensives. However, the military is convinced that the defense forces are capable of holding back the enemy.
The Ukrainian Defense Forces continue their offensive toward Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region and on the outskirts of the city. According to a report from the Institute for the Study of War, Ukrainian troops have advanced in the center of Kupiansk, where clearing operations are ongoing. It is noted that journalist and fighter of the 13th Operational Brigade of the National Guard of Ukraine, Kartia, Yuri Butusov, reported on his Facebook page that Ukrainian forces have full control over the Yubileyny neighborhood in the southwest of Kupiansk. According to him, this prevents the Russians from holding any positions that remain in the southern part of the city. According to the Institute for the Study of War, geolocated footage published on December 12th and 13th indicates that Russian sabotage groups are still present in the northern and western parts of Kupiansk. At the same time, the occupiers are attempting to infiltrate Kupiansk with small infantry groups. It is noted that Russian military correspondents previously reported on the advance of Ukrainian defense forces into the Yubileyny neighborhood and to the northwest of Kupiansk, as well as claiming heavy fighting near Mirove and Rodkivka. Earlier, the Chief of Staff of the Reconnaissance Battalion of the National Guard of Ukraine's Kartia Brigade, known by the callsign Wolf, stated that about 200 Russian soldiers are trapped in the central part of Kupiansk. Reinforcements have not reached the occupiers for several weeks now. On the air of Donbass Realities Radio, Wolf explained that first, the Ukrainian armed forces disrupted the Russians' logistics, and then began search and strike operations, as a result of which the northern part of Kupiansk was cleared. Meanwhile, Ukrainian soldiers destroyed a pipe that Russia had been using for covert infiltration into Kupiansk. The Achilles Regiment published a video of the destruction of the facility. This route allowed the occupiers to amass forces while bypassing fire control.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky visited Kupiansk on December 12th following news of a successful counterattack by the armed forces of Ukraine in the city and its surroundings.
Our warriors who are achieving results for Ukraine here. Thank you to every unit, to everyone fighting here, to everyone destroying the occupier. Today it is extremely important to achieve results on the front so that Ukraine can achieve results in diplomacy. That's exactly how it works.
In Russia, the appearance of the Ukrainian president in Kupiansk caused extreme outrage because on December 2nd, Putin had declared that Kupiansk was under full Russian control and had invited foreign journalists to visit the city. Z channels reminded everyone that Gerasimov and the commander of the Western military group had reported the complete liberation of the city and the encirclement of as many as 15 Ukrainian armed forces battalions.
Putin invited journalists to come, but instead Zelensky came and calmly left. I wonder, will there be any kind of investigation after something like this?
Z channels have acknowledged the successful offensive of the Ukrainian armed forces in Kupiansk and are reporting major problems for the Russian military. Their logistics have been cut off. Everything is bad there. Kondrashovka and Radkovka are under enemy control. Logistics in Kupiansk are gone, so the message says. Ukrainian defense forces carried out a successful counterattack near Kupiansk and encircled the Russian group in the city, according to a report on Friday, December 12th, from the command of the 2nd Corps of the Search and Strike Group, Kartia.
The objective was to enter the city and clear it of Russians. We operated in 2 or 3 directions at once, cutting off their logistics. Today we can say that the Russians in the city are completely cut off. For a long time they couldn't understand what was happening, but now they know that they are surrounded.
According to the Ukrainian OSINT project Deep State, the entire northwestern outskirts of Kupiansk have been cleared of Russian armed forces soldiers. Ukrainian defense forces have taken control of Radkivka and Kondrashivka and have brought Holubivka under fire control. After that, a sweep was carried out in the Mirova area and the northwestern outskirts of Kupiansk itself.
On the night of December 14th, Russian regions were attacked by drones. According to Telegram channels, this is one of the most massive attacks. In particular, a fuel depot in Uryupinsk, Volgograd region was hit by drones. Local residents recorded a fire at the facility. Earlier, UAVs had already attacked this fuel depot on the night of December 3rd. The attack on the fuel depot was confirmed by the governor of the Volgograd region, Andrei Bocharov.
In Uryupinsk, as a result of falling UAV debris, a fire broke out at the fuel depot. Firefighters, emergency services, and municipal employees are working at the scene of the incident.
The Slavneft Yanos oil refinery in Yaroslavl was attacked again. This refinery was previously attacked on the night of December 12th. At night, residents of Shtylkino in the Tula region also reported explosions and a fire. There is a chemical plant, Shtylkino Azot, which had already suspended operations in the summer after an attack. The Smolenskaya Gres power plant was also under drone attack. Drones also attacked Russia's Krasnodar region. Local residents reported explosions near the Afipsky oil refinery. Explosions also rang out in temporarily occupied Crimea. On the evening of December 13th, a fire broke out at an oil depot near the power plant in Simferopol. According to the monitoring group Crimean Wind, citing satellite imagery as of the morning of December 14th, an oil depot in the village of Bitumnoye near Simferopol is on fire. In addition, according to Telegram channels, an electrical substation in Jankoy was likely hit. As usual, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported that air defense systems had allegedly intercepted and destroyed 235 UAVs. At the same time, there is no mention in the ministry's report of the Volgograd region, where an oil depot in Uryupinsk was attacked.